Hi everyone, Russ Thomas here from RST Coaching Academy. Welcome to a new episode of Money Talks, where we talk about money and how to make more of it. So everybody, good afternoon or good morning from Russ here at Money Talks in Daytona Beach. Beautiful day, hot and humid as usual. You gotta love it, I guess, or we move away, one of the two. But anyway, today I am pleased and proud to interview my friend Paul Routhier from Minnesota. He is in a similar business as mine and has been around longer than me, has got a vast array of experience and wisdom based on that experience. And I'm excited to have him on the program today to learn about him, his background, where he comes from, what he's doing, where he's going, and ultimately how he could maybe help you get there also. So, Paul, hello. Welcome.
Thanks, Russ.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thanks for taking the time to spend with us today on Money Talks. And I just want to ask the question, will you tell us about Paul? Tell us about yourself, all about you, your background, and so on. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of an anomaly in my industry. I come from the software and hardware industry. I originally started up 30 years ago in telecommunications. I worked for Lucent Technologies and sold their big Definity switches into large organizations and small telecoms. I've been primarily in enterprise sales. My last position was a VP of sales with a software company, and we sold to companies like Best Buy, Target, 3M. I've had a couple of consulting companies. I come from a background in technology. I was also in the Navy. I was a navigator in the Navy. And so just kind of a diverse background in startups for 30 years. I've been with 15 different startup companies, all the way from, garage development and building them into $300-400 million companies. So very, very adept at operations, leadership, and sales and marketing.
Wow. How did you get into the sales game? Is that your education degree in college or what? What
it was kind of interesting because after I got out of the Navy, I'd signed on. I was assistant marketing director at a casino, and somebody recruited me to come to Minnesota, of all places. I've lived everywhere else, but my career started in Minnesota in sales, and I was the first guy out there selling the ATM machines that you see at the convenience stores. So prior to me, there were no ATMs at the convenience stores, and this little company in Texas started manufacturing. They took their old safes. It was called Triton Safe Company, and they turned those safes into ATMs. So the first ATM machines that went in stores were actually, they'd stick the money in little tubes, and the tubes would go in, and then your money would drop out in a tube. Wow. So that was a long time ago. I was with that company for about a year, and I got out. It wasn't a great experience. And then I ended up as a recruiter, and I started recruiting in the telecommunications industry. So I was recruiting for Ameritech, and I was recruiting these guys, and they're making like $200,000-300,000 a year. I was like, I need to get into that game. So I actually, once I found that out, I literally knocked on every door of every telecommunications company in Chicago and tried to get a job. And finally, one company gave me an opportunity, came in straight commission, and I trained up, and in fact, my first day, I asked, who is the best salesman here? And Greg Anderson was the guy who was sitting over there, and I says, "Does that seat next to him open?" And they're like, "Yeah, it is." I sat next to him, and I introduced myself and asked if I could listen in on his phone calls and everything, watch everything he was doing. And I did. And I became the number 2 salesperson in that organization in 6 months,
Wow.
him being number 1. So I really kind of transitioned from kind of the marketing side to the sales side
Uh,
and got that opportunity. And then from there, I went to Listen Technologies, ended up in Colorado, and have kind of been in that sales and marketing operations. I'm also very technical. I was a certified Cisco network in Cisco networks. So I'm the anomaly is being both technical and sales.
that is unique. I come from a computer background myself, and I was a consultant, contract programmer up in Wisconsin, and I always thought that I'm a little unique because I had the personality that could talk the sales, talk the communication one-on-one with people, but then also had the technical side of me that could do the analytical part, do the coding, the system design, and all that. So I think we're rare breeds in that arena. People are usually one or the other, but we're anomalies because we
Oh yeah, I
we're
mean
comfortable in both worlds.
it was kind of inbred in me. When I was in high school, we actually had a really cool vocational program. And I walked out of high school with certifications in COBOL, Fortran. The first computer I ever worked on was an IBM System 360. And we, the first microcomputers that came out, which were the TRS 80s, with the 5.5 inch disk drive. So
Yeah.
it was, I came really from the technical and went into sales. And, one of the interesting things, when we start talking about this stuff is that I'm actually an introvert. A lot of people don't know that about me. I actually am not, Mr. Personality out there all the time. I really had to train myself into the sales realm from being who I was. I was very comfortable sitting behind a computer and coding,
Uh-huh.
and I like to tell that because sales is not something you're born with. It is something that you're trained to do.
That's a good point. Um, how hard was it to condition yourself, to train yourself, to put yourself out there? Being a naturally born introvert, how did you do that? I mean, a lot of people are in that position and says, well, I'm not a salesperson. I can't talk to people. Maybe you couldn't, but you can now. How did you do that?
Yeah, that transition, I think it's more of a conscious, intentional shift. It's not like I've changed personalities.
Uh-huh.
Like I could happily, sit behind the computer and not talk to anybody all day long. And it's a day to day, and it's results based. It's like when I talk to people, there's a result, and I like the result, right? And versus not talking to people doesn't. If I don't talk to anyone, then obviously my cash flow would go down, right?
Funny
So
how that works.
it's funny how that works. So it's results based, and it is, I've been well trained and I've put the reps in. So it's second nature at this point. I get up in the morning and I shift into my ulterior personality, which is outgoing and in front of everybody. And then at 9 o'clock at night, I shift back into reading a book or doing whatever it is. And my day to day is what my day to day is. And it's interesting that both of those personality traits, one takes charge at the right time, right? So we all have all of these personality traits. It's just what's in charge
Right.
in your head. And if you can gain control over who's in charge at what time, you can make this happen. And it's just all practice. It's all practice and training. It's
Good
just like
point.
being in the military, right? Then it becomes
Yep.
muscle memory.
Right. So here you were, there you were in that arena behind the scenes, coding, whatever, working at your desk. Something clicked in you that said, I see the potential in sales and I want to do it. You must have
Mhm.
you must have gone through that process and and had a dream and a commit, had a dream, a goal, and then backed up with a commitment. Am I right? That it was like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
you're
do
very
this.
right. There's a piece in there that not a lot of people know about. Is there was a time I was in the military, and and even though I was the quiet guy, I had some strong opinions. And when I got into a conversation and it was something that I truly believed in and I spoke about, people would start to listen. They'd start to gather around and they'd listen. And I recognize that. I'm like, okay, if I really believe in what I'm talking about, I must be messaging it in a way that people want to hear it. So recognizing that and then kind of making my way out of the military and going to college and doing all that, I kind of stepped into the game realizing that I had to do that to make a living.
Uh-huh.
It was just a realization that if I did anything else, I wasn't going to make the living that I wanted to make. So it became a conscious, tee off on a platform of being able to speak and then really doing the reps to get there to do it on a daily basis and make phone calls and talk to people.
Right. Conscious decision to do what you needed to do to get to where you wanted to get to.
Exactly.
I appreciated what you said about the quiet guy, but then you had opinions and a strong opinion, you would start speaking that and people would gather around, and the people probably thought, wow, this Paul guy, he's pretty quiet normally, but he's really going at it now. He must really have something solid and profound to say, which I'm sure you did. And people that are motor mouths all the time, it's just like, yeah, there he goes. But a person that's naturally quiet, but then speaks up on a platform that's important to them that they believe in, going to attract some attention because they don't usually do that. People aren't normally aware of them or conscious of them just going off like that. So that had to have turned some heads just because you stepped out of yourself and spoke.
Well, and I think there's a little gold nugget there. One of the things about being the quiet guy is that you're listening,
Yeah.
right? So and there's a nice little fine line between the two, is when to speak and when not to speak.
True.
And taking the time to listen and really process what someone's saying
Mm-hmm.
is one of the biggest keys to sales.
Yeah.
Is to hear what they're really struggling with and the words that they use,
Right.
to define what they're struggling with.
And we know that if we ask the question and then shut up and open our ears, they're going to tell us all about themselves and ultimately their needs, their hot buttons, and so on. If we just listen and quit talking ourselves, that's the thing with a lot of salespeople. Wouldn't you agree? Is that they're just, a person that is very extrovertish, flamboyant and stuff. People would say, "Oh, you make a great salesperson." Boy, that is not necessarily true, is it? Because they're too busy talking than to be able to perceive where the prospect is coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other thing in my career, I can say this with full transparency, is that And anyone who's ever done business with me knows that I absolutely 100% care and I'm interested in their business. My experience comes from other people's experience. It comes from listening to what my clients over the years have been struggling with.
Uh-huh.
And I've got that all filed away. It's all filed. It's like if you bring up a subject and I know a company that's dealt with that subject, it will pop out in that file system in my head. That's been one of the biggest things, is that I really do care about the clients. I get into their business, and I understand their business from their perspective and what they're struggling with.
Yes, right. So you're doing sales and you're doing consulting, coaching. All right. There's a that's a different world between the two, is there not?
Yeah, I'm not primarily targeted at salespeople. I really am targeted at software companies and helping them get through the struggles of startup. Like I said, I've been in 15 startups, so
Uh-huh.
I'm very I understand the struggles of startup. I understand what it takes to get your first customer in the technology game. I understand the politics and the enterprise sale, which sets me apart from a lot. So we do get into some sales, but I would say that it's more about revenue strategy,
Okay.
operations, aligning and alignment that I really help with, and getting these guys. And I always look at, a startup company like an engine, right? You build the engine, and then you got to figure out what the best gas is to put in so you can get the horsepower out the back end.
Right.
And then figuring what we can do to create efficiency in the system so we're getting better MPG out of them, right?
Right.
Less gas in, more horsepower out, or
Right.
mileage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I was talking with a person a few months ago at a conference, and I conveyed my interest in working with startup people because I've started a number of business in my 50 years in the business world, and I love that, getting things going, setting things in place, moving forward, making it happen. Whether it succeeds or not, it's still been a blast getting it going, starting it up. So I conveyed my interest in being able to work with a person that was just starting out. Maybe they had a dream of whatever, and wanting to work with them and coach them and help them get going. And the individual, this lady that I was talking with, said, the only thing about that is that a startup typically does not have the money to be able to pay for your coaching services, Russ. Give them maybe 1 to 3 years where they've survived the first year and have some cash flow going on, and then go in. So I bring this up because it's your forte. You really like the startup, the newbie. How do you get past that cash flow thing? Has it been an issue in your experience with a startup?
Well, some companies make it an issue for themselves. I mean, and it's obvious. I've had a couple of startup companies. I've had coaches and consultants come in, and it can be an issue. The thing is it's a matter of mindset. How fast do you want to get there? You have to feed the engine, and part of the engine is putting the right pieces in the right place at the right time.
Uh-huh.
And if you're missing those pieces, then it slows your ability to get the engine started. Okay, you can't. And so, yeah, for that person who says, well, when I get the cash flow, it's no, hold on, this activity is about building the cash flow. Okay, this is getting it started now. What you're going to do is you're going to go blindly with the lights off, walking through the warehouse, and you don't know where anything is. And a lot of one of the things that most entrepreneurs, a good portion of them in my industry, are jumping from corporate.
Ah,
So they're jumping out of a big corporation into entrepreneurship.
mhm.
So if you think about this, when you got your job at the corporation, you walked in the door the first day and you sat down and they stuck a manual in front of you and they introduce you to HR and they introduce you to operations and they talk to you about standard operating procedures and all these are all mapped out in this manual,
Mhm.
right? So when after that first day, you knew one thing. You knew you weren't alone. You knew that you could pick up the phone and call somebody if you had a question, or you knew that you could open up a page in the manual to figure out how to do something. And then you work there for 10 years and you decide that you're going to become an entrepreneur. And you take this big jump into the abyss
Yep.
because your first day, there are no manuals. There are no standard operating procedures. There's no marketing department. There's no sales department. There is just you. And now it is you who are the marketing department, the sales department, the operations department, the fulfillment department, the shipping department. You are everything, unless you get together with a group of guys to open up a business. But you're still now you're all jumping into the abyss, and you have to create all this stuff so that you can grow the business. Scalability. We talk about scalability. You open your doors and you are a business, and then you have to scale the business. Scaling requires a couple of things. It requires money. It requires processes and procedures so that you can train people to come in. And it requires a standard operating procedure so that everything is repeatable and what can be automated should be automated, right? Once you start getting that, then you provide this catalyst for scaling. It's that MPG again. You know, you're running the old leaded fuel in the system and you want to get it up to being able to run race fuel in the system. And so you have to switch out parts and you have to put the right parts in the engine so that race fuel is catalyzed and burns well. So that is where the coach and the consultant who has already done this stuff with multiple companies can get you both contacts and resources to be able to do that. So now we're talking about speed to execution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a coach, and you get distracted and defocused and shiny things and all of that stuff. And your coach is there to keep you and help keep you focused on that. I don't know an NFL team without a coach.
Right.
Okay. If you plan on playing in the big leagues, then you need someone watching to make sure that you're executing well.
Very good. Very good. So your response to an individual starting out who says, I just don't have the money to devote to this, whether it's $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month for your fee, your response is, if you don't do it, your likelihood of success is very much diminished, because what I bring to the table is things that are going to enhance and speed up your growth and get you to that area of success quicker. Is that correct? Is that a typical kind of response that you need me in order to get to where you want to get to as quickly as possible?
Well, it's wrapped around what their plans are, what their exit strategy is for. I mean, if we're this deep in the conversation, then we're talking about their exit strategy and how quickly they plan on, building this monster and what they actually want to accomplish out of it. Because there are some companies, right, that it's not a going concern. It's a lifestyle company. They're looking to build up a certain amount of revenue to maintain a lifestyle. They like their boat, they like their, their
Steve?
car, they like to go on their vacations twice a year. And and they don't have a vision of growing a company. They have a vision of maintaining a lifestyle. That's a different idea. And actually that's not someone I would want to work with, because that there's no drive beyond themselves. There's no vision beyond themselves. One of the first exercises I do with any company is making sure that they have the long-term vision. They have a goal that they want to hit, and that they're working a plan forward to do that. That's the first step in any what we would call a going concern. What's your exit strategy? Is your exit strategy to be at IPO within 5 years, to blow it up? Are you looking at gaining private equity? And I work with some private equity companies and help get their owned companies in line from the standpoint of leadership. So it's really the real dictation of whether they have the money or not that's not a true statement. It is, do they have the vision or not? If they have the vision, they'll find the money, because they'll understand that they need to get these things in order, and they need to be playing their A game every day. And so that's kind of the real determination is what's your vision for your company?
Yeah. Wow. And some of them say, yep, I'm in. And some of them say, I'm not. That's part of the way that goes, huh?
I have a small business client in Michigan who just signed on a couple of months ago. We did, she's been coached before. She, signed on. She knows the value of coaching. I came in, I took a look at her business. We adjusted her marketing. We split her website apart. We added 2 steps into her sales process. We did just a bunch of things. And the results in 2 months were from a 40% to an 83% closing ratio. She went from 40 grand a month to 120 grand a month in 2 months of switching things around, because we built the efficiencies into her operations, her delivery, her sales process, the whole bucket of wax, and we got everything in alignment. And now she's feeding high octane into the front of the engine, because the engine's running at full efficiency, and she's getting serious MPG out the back and with less effort. So it's a matter of having someone who can see the whole field versus the CEO who's playing right in the game.
Yeah, sometimes a person is so close into it, so involved, they can't see the bigger picture. Just focused right in there. So you develop the capability of taking a person from here to there. You didn't start out with that knowledge. Did you create that knowledge and experience as you traveled along? Gained insight that you could share with your clients? Or how did you grow as a coach, consultant, in the process for yourself? How did you get better at what you do?
I think it goes back to that listening. It's the observation. I've dealt with over 30,000 companies over my career, and I've listened to every one of them and made notes on every one of them. And there are standard operating procedures that work for every company. And I understand the catalyst of doing that and how to make decisions for those companies. So it is the experience is what makes it. The step-by-step process of creating a business is very well documented. It's the things that you have to do are very well documented. It is just like football. There's only so many plays you can put on the field. There is it's the question of execution. And a coach is there to help you execute every play and get you better at executing them.
Good point. Do you have a set plan or process that you take a new client through as they sign on? Or is it all just depending on that situation.
Well, just like any situation, solid analysis is the first step, right? We need to analyze your business, what you want to do, where you're going to go, what your vision is, what your exit strategy is, and where you sit now, from both a revenue standpoint, sales standpoint, operations standpoint. What kind of leader are you? We need to look at all that, and then based on that, we sit down and we put a plan together, and then we drop that plan into 90-day increments, quarters, and then all the tasks and resources get assigned. It's project planning from its infancy. And then we start to help you execute on what you need to get done to get there.
Got it. So you are in for the long haul. Is there a point where you say to the client, you know what, we've accomplished all we set out to accomplish. I don't think you need me anymore. Or is there always a next step, always something to go into, something new that you can develop for that client?
Well, let's since we're using all these NFL metaphors today, I'll just go with the metaphor. Have you ever seen an NFL team lose a coach without replacing them?
No, they need a coach.
They need a coach. They may not need the same coach. See, a lot of people think that this is actually a good point, because just like in the growth of any ongoing concern, a company, say, who wants to release an IPO, there is a CEO for every stage of that company. It might not be the same CEO all the way through. And it might not be the same coach all the way through. So the fact is that they may need a different coach to gain a different perspective, but they always need a coach.
Good to know. Good to be able to share with the client that it's time for you to replace me with somebody that can take you elsewhere, beyond.
Yep. Correct? Possibly to the next level, depending on that.
Right.
I wouldn't purport to coach the CEO of Best Buy, right? His modus operandi and the needs for his company are very different than a startup company.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So it's a different mindset. It gravitates more on financial and large retail, which is not an expertise of mine.
Got it.
So I wouldn't do that. Now, the CEO of Lucent Technologies, I could play there, because I understand both the sales process, I understand the finance process, I understand the operations process, and that's where I would play well. So if I ran into that, then I would use my vast network to get him into the right coaching situation.
All right. Pass them on to somebody that's more well suited to that individual's needs, where they're at, where they're going, kind of thing. You've been doing coaching for how long now?
I've been a consultant pretty much my whole career. I mean, part of the sales that I did had a deep consulting background. So 30 years into various industries, manufacturing, retail from the side of financial compliance. So just kind of a vast background in coaching and consulting.
I see. Very good. So I imagine that today you don't have much trouble acquiring new clients, maybe referrals or whatever. It's probably easier to get new clients than it was 30 years ago.
I'd say, the industry is kind of crazy right now. There are millions of coaches out there. So it's not about getting clients, it's about the right clients. I mean, you have to fit a specific criterion for me to work with you. And it's more of a qualification process than that. I mean, I'm really targeted at software startups, although 50% of my clients are construction companies for some reason. But I love them because they are, you know, I've got executors. I mean, none of this works. The coaching does not work if the client doesn't execute.
Right.
You can take them and that's the real thing. Does the client have a willingness and a want to commit to executing on their plans, or is the client have a history of getting sidetracked and distracted and those type of things? So I really focus my efforts on companies that are going to listen and execute on what they do, because if they do as applied, and you'll even see it in my LinkedIn. I have a client in there from 20 years ago. Said if you do what's applied and as suggested, you'll get the success that you're looking for.
Interesting. So what's interesting too, is I heard you say that you qualify the prospective client and don't take just anybody. So is they're interviewing you for you to be their coach, you're also interviewing them as to whether or not you even want to work with them in the first place.
Correct. Yeah, that's absolute.
And you have
it's a conversation for sure.
Yeah, you have criteria that you want, you know, to be met in order for them to qualify that I will work with you because I perceive in you, number one, you're teachable. I think that's very important, right?
Yep.
And you'll execute the things that I recommend, that I suggest. So how did you, as a new guy in your coaching career, how did you attract clients at the first?
Well, I mean, I've got a pretty solid reputation in my industry. So when I became available, I just contacted the people I know.
Okay.
So it's you know, to your point, I think the biggest thing is that is the not teachable, because, and here's the point I want to make, is most of the guys that I know or that I'm working with already know this stuff. They know what they need to do. They know they understand the processes. They understand what they need to accomplish. It is bringing the right thought to top of mind at the time that needs to be executed. That's what that's about. Okay. There's a million things when you're running a company that you're focused on. And at certain times, you need to be focused on certain things. And that's where the coach is really, really helpful, is to get all the clutter out and really be focused on the things that you need to do to grow.
Got it. So you were in a unique position because of your background. When you decided to hang your shingle out, you just contacted people that you've been working with for years, say, hey, I'm doing this now. Would you like to join me? Basically, you know, in a nutshell. What about a person, and I'm going to kind of close with this question, a person that is starting out in the coaching arena, coaching whatever their background is, whatever their desire is, what advice would you pass on to such individual to help them to get going and overcome the startup type hurdles for their own business?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is to make sure that you document your proprietary process and then call all those people that you know. And the thing is, it's not just the people you know, it's the people that they know, right? It's Kevin Bacon's 7 degrees of separation. They know somebody who needs your service, but you've got to be clear, very clear on two things. And this is probably the biggest piece. What is the problem that you solve, and who do you solve it for? Because until you're clear on those two things, it's going to be very difficult to talk about and reach out to what you do and who you do it for, because it's the problem that you solve that's the problem you fix, right? That's and now who has that problem? That's who I'm going to reach out to, is who has that problem. So you got to be clear on those two things, or
that limits the market.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It helps you to be laser focused on who you want to serve.
Absolutely.
All right. So anybody out there watching this on Roku or Amazon, anyone listening to this on one of our podcasts, here you've been listening to an expert in the coaching arena, 30 years experience. He knows what he's doing. He's learned the hard lessons, and he's been able to pass these things on to other individuals, such as you and me, anybody that'll listen, anybody that'll apply what has been taught. Paul, if somebody wants to avail themselves of your services, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, they can go two ways. They can go to our website, which is www.clevelandrain.com, or they can just email me at paul@clevelandrain.com.
All right. There we have it. clevelandrain.com or paul@clevelandrain.com. I'm sure there's a story behind Cleveland Rain. We maybe get into that another time. But anyway, hey man, I've appreciated picking your brain into this arena. Most of the people, most of them, 95, 99% of the folks that I've interviewed here on Money Talks, we've been talking sales, but it's been refreshing to talk coaching. I perceive you as a coach's coach.
Thanks.
Who's been around the block, knows the ins and outs, can take a startup, no less, somebody that fresh out of a corporation wants to venture on their own, taking that startup and moving them into levels of success, and ultimately being able to exit that company, to sell it off or whatever they want to do. I think that is a unique talent for you to be able to be involved and be able to do and be able to serve your clients with. So I commend you in that. And anybody that wants to join Paul in that trip, and actually, if you want to start a retail store, Paul's not your guy. Paul's specialty is the high-tech hardware, software, correct?
Correct.
That's your forte. That's your arena. So anybody that's interested in that area, give Paul a contact, give him a call, get on his email. So anyway, thank you folks for watching. Thank you, Paul, for being with us today. We appreciated all the time that you spent with me, with us, and sharing your life, sharing your thoughts, your experiences, your wisdom, your advice. So folks, over and out for today, Money Talks. We will see you, and you will hear us next time. And we thank you for tuning in today. All right. Thank you, and over and out. Bye-bye. Hi, thanks for being here today for another episode of Money Talks. I hope it was informative and encouraging to you. If it struck a chord in your heart, or if you have any questions or comments, please let us know. Visit us at rstcoachingacademy.com, call 386-286-2450, or send an email to email@rstcoachingacademy. Thanks again, and until next time, be great.